it very quickly became we were banning the use of master bedroom, which is not at all what it did.
This is Byron Lazine, Nicole White, and Matt Burrus, who will introduce shortly on episode 128 of The Real Word. Matt, you are the Chief Communication Officer of the Houston Association of Realtors. Of course, if you didn't see episode 127, you've got to go back, check that out, and then come back to this one. Matt, this is not a setup. And I appreciate, by the way, that you have chosen to talk about this topic on our show. I know you've been approached by dozens of news outlets. Is that correct?
Yeah, a lot.
A lot.
Yeah.
We'll go with a lot.
Yeah.
So Matt, the floor is yours. I was quite critical in my thoughts, and I'm not going to speak for Nicole, but for me, I thought that the Houston Association of Realtors was headline grabbing with the change of taking master bedroom out of basically your listings and marketing for your members. I thought it was a headline grab. You reached out to both Nicole and myself and wanted to state what you guys are doing above and beyond what we saw in the Inman News headline. And then obviously that gained traction when John Legend sent his tweet out. So Matt, the floor is yours. What are you guys doing above and beyond the master bedroom drama?
So first I want to say what we did with master bedroom, because it was a little bit of a game of telephone in that even the most recent story that was out of a London newspaper said we responded to John Legend saying he didn't like the term master bedroom. And so we changed it after he called us out, which obviously wasn't the way it happened. So let me just go back to the beginning real fast and tell you what we did do and what we didn't do. So first, it was member-driven, as all of our decisions are. And so members came to us and said, we're concerned about the term. This is probably the 10th year people have brought it to us, so this wasn't a new topic to be considered. Our MLS advisory group, again, 100%, composed of realtors in our market who are out there working every day, decided that they wanted to change in the MLS. So the data input fields in Matrix, which is our MLS platform, when you go in to add a new listing, it says primary bedroom, primary bath instead of master bedroom, master bath. Literally, that's all it did. It in no way banned using master bedroom. You can continue to use master bedroom in the agent remarks, in the property description, in your photo captions. You can use it when you're talking to people. You can use it in your flyers. You can use it in your emails. Doesn't matter. It literally was just those two data input fields in the MLS. That was the extent of it. And so it became this big, I started getting phone calls from people saying, y'all are going to fine us if we're walking through a house and we call it a master bedroom. And it's like, no, we aren't. Well, no, that's what I heard. And I was like, no, I promise you there's literally nothing you could do to get fined for this. Like, the field has just been changed. It is what it is. So I wanted to clarify what it did and what it didn't do, because it very quickly became we were banning the use of master bedroom, which is not at all what it did.
Even in Connecticut, they're saying it, to be honest.
Right. I mean, I got phone calls from Pennsylvania, and I got some from some, small association in North Carolina, and it just became this big thing. And it even wasn't the advisory group, and I mean, their discussions are technically confidential, but I can sort of summarize what they expressed. It wasn't so much that they thought it was a racist term. It was that we had consumers over the years approach, us and approach them, just saying, it gave me pause. We weren't in any way claiming that it, was rooted in slavery or anything like that. One of the original members who brought it to us, that was how they phrased it. So they may have thought that, but just like you may think something doesn't mean that your local association thinks that, or the Connecticut Association of Realtors or whatever. that was the one member, and then that became the association thinks this because one of our members did.
And you guys are, correct me if I'm wrong, you're the second largest association after one in California, or is that incorrect? You guys are a very large association.
Yeah, we have 39,000 members. And so we are the second largest local realtor association in the country after Miami, actually.
Oh, after Miami. Okay.
They have 46 or something like that thousand.
So Matt, I guess the question I have is why the timing of the change now during everything that's going on?
Yeah, I mean, again, it had come up for probably every year for the past 10 years. Do I think the current, environment was probably responsible for the reason it changed right now? Absolutely. I mean, I can't honestly say that's not what spurred it on. Before we regularly review all kinds of MLS terms, and they're usually boring and mundane and just, unless you were a realtor, you wouldn't really care that much. A realtor in our MLS, but suddenly people all across the country seem to care what's in our MLS. And so this was just one of those changes. And so in the past, maybe a handful of people would come forward and say, hey, can you look at this? And the advisory group would look at it. And, in years past, they didn't, pass it, to make a change. This year, again, I would tend to say that it was because of the current environment and everything that's happened. They said the general gist of it was if someone's going to have a negative reaction, whether it's a real or perceived, term that derived from something negative about something that should be the happiest, one of the happiest, occurrences when they're buying a home, which is a huge deal for, most people. Surely no one will be offended by primary bedroom, Apparently a lot of people were, but from my phone calls and my, Facebook messages telling me to do all sorts of things to myself, that were very creative. But again, that was the thing that kind of was surprising was one, the anger behind it, how much people were attached to master bedroom,
Yeah, and I'm not attached to any real estate terminology when it comes to showing homes. In fact, showing homes is my least favorite part of the job. Nicole would agree with that, right?
True.
Is that my least favorite? But so I want to get into some more of the, I think, important issues at hand to me, because I think you're right. It was blown way out of proportion. We certainly jumped on it because it was trending, and I was not in any way frustrated with a change from master bedroom to primary bedroom, nor do I care. What I do care about in particular is that Newsday investigation up in our neck of the woods, based in Long Island. Mm-hmm. Have you had a chance to look at that investigation?
I have, and in fact, this coming Monday on our Facebook Live show at 9 a.m. every Monday, we have a Facebook Live show. We have Bill Deadman, who was one of the investigative reporters, Pulitzer Prize winner. He was on the Newsday reporting team, and so he's coming on to talk about the Newsday report. We also have, it didn't get nearly the amount of attention that the Newsday report did, but there was a doctoral student at Rice University here who did a similar study, smaller obviously because it was just her putting this together, but specifically for the Houston market. And so we're figuring out where she can come in and sort of present.
Is that accessible to the public?
I don't know, because she was, again, it was like her doctoral research or something like that. And so she's a professor at a different university. And so we're trying to figure out, again, how we could. It found essentially the same things that people would use sort of subtext to say, oh, that neighborhood has a lot of crime, or, they would tell some people it had crime, some people they wouldn't. And it was very similar to the Newsday stuff. So.
Like Nicole and I with our team, we did a couple pieces of training just focused on that Newsday investigation. We wanted to take some type of action that, we could actually apply to what we do every single day and bring awareness with our agents. So we have a small team here, but our agents, even though Real Trends classifies as a large team, I have a bone to pick with them, but we wanted to actually apply some type of learning to fair housing within our environment so that every single day we can get a little bit better. Every single day we can hopefully make a positive change in our community. Outside of the Monday Facebook Live, which I think is awesome, what else is the Houston Association of Realtors doing to improve fair housing practices?
Yeah, so I mean, I think we're obviously in an interesting situation because, we have, again, the 39,000 members. We don't, exert control.
You have a big voice with that 39,000.
Of course. And so, I mean, and they listen to us to a point. Just like they're all independent contractors. So, I mean, even their broker can't, technically tell them what to do. So, I think, yeah, so for good or bad. But, we've, for many years, we've offered the at-home with diversity certification, to our members. We're upping that to make it available more than we did before. We have real estate with diversity, which is about dealing with different cultures. Obviously, we're in Houston, and so we have, a lot of different cultures all coming together in Houston. And so we're doing that. We will have a webinar series beginning next month, to talk about it. I do have to mention one more Member Focus Monday, just because on July 27th, we will have Richard Rothstein, who's the author of The Color of Law, which is, if you're watching any of this, it's probably in the top 3 books that keeps getting mentioned as the things that, one of the books you should read. So we have him coming on and talking about his findings about how large cities were segregated. Ours is mainly just the ability to push out information and try to educate. They have to obviously be willing and open to it. And so, we're hiring a diversity consultant to come in and make sure we do it right, because this isn't our area. And so we want to make sure that we're doing all the steps that we need to do, especially on the outreach side. So,
is NAR doing enough for fair housing?
I think in response to this, they have this whole, website with all of these resources, and, and they'll send in consultants, and they have training and implicit bias training, which we're not incorporating theirs, but we have someone coming in who's doing a staff training, and, we have an annual planning conference that plans the goals for the following year. And so we'll be incorporating that. We have our Engage conference, which is for our members. And so we'll be having a diversity component to that as well. We'll probably have the woman who, again, did the research while she was here present at that conference, and probably the Newsday reporter as well.
I'm going to definitely check that out. I'd love to check that out. Anything else on this topic? There's a couple more things since we have you. Matt Burrus, Chief Communications Officer for Houston Association of Realtors. Again, appreciate your time.
Of course.
There's a couple other industry-related topics we want to get to, but anything else on the fair housing on this?
No, I think he's touched on all of it. It sounds like obviously you've been doing training up until this point. It's not like you're just starting all of this now. So for people, and again, I know like what Byron touched on it a lot last week, like, why are you changing master bedroom when there's so many other things that should and can be changed? But I guess, what is important is that you have been obviously presenting things, but obviously now you're just sort of adding an additional layer because now it's so poignant, right?
Yeah, and obviously none of that has been enough. There was some suggestion that we were in some way celebrating, or we were patting ourselves on the back for, changing master bedroom.
Well, it's funny because when you and I were talking though too, you were even saying that a lot of people actually had more of a problem with it because it was man versus woman than, more so than, and we actually talked about that last week too. Yeah. He was welcoming the women into his, you were welcoming.
Well, I think most men, some men anyway, will welcome women to the master bedroom. I just thought it was a very little tiny itsy bitsy problem in the grand scheme of things.
Well, but like you said at the beginning though, it was a grab. It was such a great headline grab. And again, people at our open houses even here are like, oh, I can't call it a master bedroom anymore. And I'm like, what? Yeah.
And really people that are advocating change in America want to see systemic change. They want to see things actually happen in different areas outside of renaming, a master bedroom or renaming a park or a, whatever. Matt, Anything else on that before we move on?
No, I mean, I think the thing that, sometimes gets lost is that we 100% agree. That's the thing is we didn't just change that and then think that was going to end racism. As some people suggested. And my response, I responded on Twitter to somebody who said we were, kind of self-congratulatory, is I said, we'll celebrate the day that racism is no longer an issue in real estate. Like, that's the day we'll celebrate. We're not celebrating because we changed master bedroom. That, again, it's one tiny piece of everything else that we're doing, to try to increase accessibility and equity in the market for real estate. So everybody's got to have some place to live. So and as agents, we've got a lot of work to do because we are on the front lines of some of the stuff that is happening in a negative way. So if you watched the last episode, we talked about open houses. Should they continue? The Jay Thompson article in Inman. You have a take on this. Go ahead. Yeah, so we we have 39,000 members, and so we're relatively large, and so we have a good amount of resources to be able to do things. And so obviously open houses in Texas, real estate was deemed essential, and so people could technically continue to have open houses, but there was a stay-at-home order, so consumers that couldn't actually go to them. So it was a weird. You could have one, but no one could come. So our technology department, which is also responsible for HAR.com, we have 6 million visitors every month.
Which, by the way, I believe is like the best association website. I checked it out. It's very impressive, HAR.com. And I think one of the numbers here, number one rank in the Apple Store for Houston searches on real estate. Am I correct?
Yep.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's the second most visited local website in Houston after the Houston Chronicles website. Wow. So we beat everybody else. We're the only market where Zillow isn't number one in the country. I always hesitate to say that publicly because then I wait for them to drop some big advertising buy and we're demolished. But
it's like Game on.
Right, exactly. But I mean, we launched the website in 1997. And not to go back to the master bedroom discussion, but part of that was everybody can see everything that's that's available. Again, we have 6 million people on the website every month, so there's no hiding what's on the market, and so the website plays a big role in that in our particular market. But for open houses specifically, we developed from the ground up a virtual open house platform for our members, and so it's integrated into the MLS directly and on HAR.com. And so that was the interesting thing, was that during the stay-at-home orders, we removed open houses from the website just because we didn't want to promote that during a time when there was a rising number of cases. Obviously we're back to that a little bit in Texas again, but we wanted to provide this virtual open house platform so that our members could continue to have access to consumers and show them. And so, to date, I think we've had nearly 12,000, people viewing the virtual open houses instead of in person. And so that was a big push for us. And we're, I think, about to launch maybe this week virtual showings, which would be on more of the buyer's agents. And they can do one-on-one or one-to-many.
I have a quick question, though, with your virtual open houses, because Byron and I go back and forth on this all the time because we started doing them and we couldn't figure out if they were most effective, if they were live for a duration or as someone giving the tour and then posting the video. How are you finding it to be the most effective on your site? Like, where are you getting the most hits? Like, what platform?
Well, so ours is on our own. We created our own platforms. Yep. It's literally because of HAR.com, we have sort of a built-in audience and.
Is it live or is it posted after the fact?
So both. So it's live, but then there's a recording after the fact. Okay. So I think just like for our Facebook Live show, we may get 400, 500 live viewers, but we have thousands and thousands. And
are they able to ask questions as you're walking through that live? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So there's a live chat component and they have to register. So it's a lead generator, because they have to include their email address or phone number. And so it's helped with that as well.
I want to just quickly move on because I have my coaching call. Tom Ferry. You're like you, Tom Ferry, the broke agent. You're like the only guest we've ever had in the real
world. I know.
So
and Jason's gonna,
my coach actually is gonna be mad. He's
going to be very upset that we snuck you on before him.
So I got a couple quick rapid fire questions here. On the website, how are the leads disseminated? Because you guys are generating leads for your association members, which our association is not doing. How are your leads disseminated to the agents?
There are, obviously the listing agent is on every listing. So, I mean, generally they're delivered to the listing agent and the broker.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
So they all it all goes back to the agent.
That's awesome. I don't know really of any other association.
Are you charging any referral fees?
Not around here doing
Are you charging any fees?
Yeah, no
Nothing.
fees. Wow.
Nope.
And you're number one in your market above Zillow. That is very impressive. All right. Want to ask you about, before I do that, yes or no, should public live open houses continue? And if yes, should there be a safety layer that we're considering?
So we are strongly encouraging our members to do virtual. Obviously, we built a whole platform around it. If the client is saying that they want to, and I mean, right now there's nothing prohibiting them from having, in-person open houses. Obviously, we're including all of, the governor for Texas, continually says, wear masks. He finally did a near statewide mask order, earlier. A little bit ago. And so wear masks, wash your hands, social distance, no groups of larger than 10 people. So a lot of our brokers have rules in place that the people have to stay in their cars outside, and they'll only allow one, car worth or whatever in at a time. And they're, sanitizing everything. And, one lesson we did learn is don't spray bleach onto the door handle, because
anywhere, please.
Sure. We've had some reports of damaged, expensive door handles that have been lost their luster, but yeah.
Yeah. Bleach is getting unnecessary. All right. Last question. iBuyers. Brad Inman said in his predictions for 2020, it would make up 50% of the market. I don't think that's going to happen in 2020. Do you see a day where iBuyers do make up 50% of all transactions in North America?
So, and this is just my personal view, so not because all of the iBuying companies are members of our association, and so, so we love them all equally. It's just a different business model. There are specific instances where iBuying makes sense. If it's sort of the 4Ds, situation. So it's, I forget what they are: diapers, death, diamonds, and I don't remember the other one. Divorce, I think is the 40. So in an instance where, you may, not be as price sensitive to what you get, then, it's good for some people. I mean, I've had friends who've done it and it's gone well. I've had friends who've, asked for quotes, and they were ridiculously low. And so they weren't going to do it. I think iBuying has a place in the market, as long as consumers say it does. We're all driven by consumer demand. And so as long as they're, interested in it, then it'll be. Do I think 50%? That seems really high. So not to poo-poo Brad Inman, but I don't know that we would get there. So, I mean, I think even, 15% is 15 or 20% would be great for them. So,
And just before we wrap up, because you guys have proven it, you're the only market that is number one ahead of Zillow for home searches. Over the next, is it over? Has Zillow won, or can other markets do what you've done and take that number one seat for online traffic away from Zillow?
I mean, I think if I'm being honest, the reason why we're number one is because we started in 1997. So, I mean, we had a head start, and so we already had the goodwill.
Well,
we
had doing like Facebook Live though, like you're doing things to keep yourself above, like Facebook Live isn't from 1997. That's for sure. So,
right. No, of
you're
course.
Certainly still in front of your consumer enough where they're choosing you over Zillow.
Yeah, I mean, that's half of my job, is external communications. And so, of course, we're still marketing it, and, we're still doing the best we can. And, again, we're every once in a while I pull out, we're, the poor little nonprofit trade association thing. But so, I mean, we strike all kinds of trade deals and, I stretch our budgeting dollar till it wants to snap. But yeah, so I mean, we're continuing to obviously market ourselves and all that. Zillow does national buys. They don't typically do buys in our market. We get reports about who comes in and buys advertising space and billboards and all of that. And so they haven't tended to do that specifically for Houston. So, I mean, I think we had the lead. I don't know that other people could replicate it at this point. That's the thing, is we get calls all the time from people saying, we want to build an HR.com. And my response is always, start from the get-go, not expecting to build an HR.com. Like, it's just, you can't go back in history. So,
and then talk to me in 23 years. You've been at it for 23 years. I think that's what Zillow has over everybody, is they've built brand now for a long time, longer than people realize.
Yeah, people still seem to act like they're like this new entrant in the market, and they've been around for quite a while now. I mean, they're just kind of part of it at this point. So, I mean, and we have a great relationship with Zillow. You know, if our brokers want it, you know, we syndicate their listings to Zillow. We facilitate it for the broker. We do not decide for the broker, because we get a lot of that from our members saying, why are you sending our listings to Zillow? And we're like, because your broker wants them there. If you don't want them there, tell us and we'll turn them off. But, you know, again, it's all driven by consumers. So as long as consumers, you know, want that, then they'll be.
And that's what Zillow's always understood. It's certainly as of late, and it's why Rich Barton is the #1 most powerful person in real estate, according to Swanepoel 200. All right. Matt, really appreciate your time.
I'm glad you called us.
Yeah, I'm really glad you reached out. I think we've cleared the air. You guys are doing much more than just making a change to bedroom names or whatever. I'm looking.
Tell John Legend.
I will. I'm not only will I let John Legend
let his wife know too.
Yeah, I will. I will be tuning in to some of these Monday Facebook Lives that you have set up, and I'll tweet it at John Legend, whether he sees it or not. I'll do my part. All right.
We tweeted him and invited him on the show. We were like, "Help us fix the problem. Come on."
So fun, and he said no, or you never responded.
He hasn't responded, but you know. But I think I read a tweet he did, and I think he was still talking about it on another show. I haven't gone back to listen to it, but there was some reference to it. So I think he's still talking about the issue. So I'm like, come on and help us, you know.
And in his defense, I think you guys are doing all the right things. And again, so I appreciate what you're doing for the industry. I think in John's defense, he's seeing so many big corporations just make a headline splash on something similar to changing a master bedroom, whatever it is in their world, and not actually taking action. You guys are taking action. We appreciate that. And Matt, thank you for your time.
Of course. Thank both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you for answering the calls when I called you.
Oh, of course.
Be well and keep it real. Thank you, Matt.